Hi, and welcome to Take Time to Create. This is where we take time out of our everyday lives to create new and wonderful things. Christmas time is fast approaching, and I cannot believe it that it will be Christmas time very soon, but it's time for me to get some decor done. So we're going to fabric mix media this tree here. It says Paper Studio, $3.99, and I actually bought it at my favorite creative reuse center, which is Who Gives a Scrap. But I think you can still find these, the Paper Studio. If I can, I will link it down below where to get these, but I'm not sure. And I will see if I can find equivalent if I can. If not, anything like this will work. And it's like a thick chipboard, cardboard-ish, or you can make one out of cardboard. Lots of options. I need to paint the background, and I'm just going to use some green, and I'm using Hooker's Green, and it's a Liquitex Basics, and I'm going to grab all of the edges too, and that is so that when I hang it up on the wall, the edges are painted. So we're back, and this is all dry, and it's not perfect. You can see how it's not an even coat, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be perfect. It is a tree, and you won't see any of this. This is just in case any of the fabric is a little bit on the transparent side or any color comes through. If you want to prep with gesso before you paint it with the acrylic paint, that's fine too. I just thought that we'll just make an easy, quick layer. So now it's time to add the fabric. And so I had this fabric, and I got it from Joann's. It was a fabric roll, and I love it. And it doesn't quite match the green, but that's okay. I'm not too worried about that. Like I said, all of this will be covered up. And then I always go back and retouch the edges on any of these fabric projects. So I will just go touch it up with a different green at the end, or gold or black, and we'll see what it looks like. So now it's time to add everything. So I'm using Gloss Heavy Gel from Liquitex, and that I put on the background. Then I take, this is Mod Podge, and it's glossy Mod Podge. I just pour it in a bowl because I buy it in the gallon jugs, and so I just pour out a little bit as needed. And I do buy the Gloss Heavy Gel in the giant tubs, and I just transfer a little bit here, work out of my smaller tub. It works out to be cheaper to buy it giant, especially with how much I go through it. Wear your gloves because this is messy. So what you do, and I've done this on almost every single fabric project that I've done, and it works really well, is I put a little layer, it's not too thin and not too thick, of this heavy gel. And then we're going to soak each of the pieces in Mod Podge and wring them out. I'm just doing the whole tree right now. If it was a larger canvas or larger project, I would work in sections because you don't want this to dry, but I'm not too worried about it as is, like this. This does dry transparent, but you have to kind of work not too quickly, but quickly enough. There is a lot of working time with this project, so that is really nice. So if you need to wait a little bit or you don't have it quite where you want it, it's just very nice that there's a lot of working time. All right, so what I'm doing now is I'm just really soaking each piece. Each piece of fabric, you want it to be coated on both sides. And then I wring it out because you don't want it soaked, you just want it wet. And I just take my two fingers, wring it out, wipe off the excess. And when you're working with fabric that has a right side and a wrong side, you want to make sure whichever side you're working on is facing up. Sometimes you might want the wrong side, the less vibrant side facing up, and that's totally fine, and it's a really cool look, but you want to be consistent and just decide. So just take a second, flip it over and check it and see what you want. And I am just going to work on this, and I'm going to speed it up because it's the same thing over and over. So just make sure it's all dipped and really scooch the fabric around. Now is the time to make sure that the fabric is exactly where you want it, because when it dries, it's dried. It's staying, it's not going anywhere. So now is the time to scooch it all around. So yeah, let's get to making this tree a little more fluffy and fabricy. So I have it all done, and really take your time and scooch the fabric around, and I still have a little bit more to do. Hold it up at all angles and really check it out. Make sure your fabric is exactly where you want it, because after it's dried, you won't be able to move it around. A question I get a lot is, how wrinkly do you make the fabric? Well, that's completely up to you. If you want it really super textured, really go to town, wrinkle it all up. If you want it smoother, smooth it out. Both are fine and both are correct. So it's really just a personal choice. For the trunk, I wanted to add a cork, and I have this tapered cork, and it's really cute. And I'm just going to cut off some of the edge so that it can lay a little flatter. It's not perfect because, well, it's a tree trunk, so that's perfect for me. And I am going to adhere it with super heavy, super gloss, heavy gloss, super gel, whatever this is called. But it's the super heavy version of it rather than the heavy, which we put on the bottom, because I don't want this trunk going anywhere. Hot glue would probably work too, if you're impatient like I usually am. But since I have all of my gel mediums out, this will work fine. Anything that you can think of to adhere the cork, that will work great. So now it's all adhered, and I'm just going to let this dry. The best thing to do with these fabric mixed medias is to let them dry overnight. Yes, you can use a heat tool. Yes, that will work. But I find that if you just be patient and let it dry overnight, you'll get a better result. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let it dry, and then I will come back and we will add all of the elements and all of the other details and really make this awesome. So this is all dry now, and you'll notice that sometimes you get little strings, and that's okay. They either pick off or you can cut them off later. I did put this piece of fabric on upside down. I know I told you guys to be really, really careful. It's not too bad. It's just a little lighter green, but I figured that kind of looks like a real tree because nothing is perfect with Christmas trees. And you can tell right here in the middle, there's a spot where I did not cover up the wood. That's why we paint everything. That's why we had that green. That way it doesn't stick out really stark. If it was this like little light color here and it was right in the middle of the tree, you would really notice it. But green, it's not too bad. And I know just to put a decoration right there in the middle, no problem. So I'm going to paint it, and I'm going to dry brush on highlights. And I'm going to use Art Alchemy, and these are Finnebars, and they are from Prima Marketing. I have some browns that I'm going to use for the trunk, probably rustic brown, steampunk copper, we'll see. I have some Sparks paint that's Dragon's Eye, that'll probably go all over. We have this really pretty emerald green that I'm going to use all over the whole tree, and maybe I'll use fairy wings and unicorn hair, I don't know. We'll see, but I have a variety of paints that I'll be using, and we'll just see how it goes. But then we want this paint layer to dry, and then we're going to decorate our Christmas tree. So let's get painting. And when we paint, we're just going to dry brush. We're just going to use, and I'm using Finnebars brushes, any brush will work, and we're just going to highlight on the top of it because we want to show the raised parts. And let me show you that real quick. Just take a tiny bit on your brush, and we're going just a little bit on the tree. Now we still want that pattern of the fabric to show through because that adds a really cool detail. But we also want just to highlight, and this metallic paint is so pretty. It gives a nice little shimmer. Metallic paint works. I use that quite a bit as well. So use what you have and go to town. So I'm going to paint my tree. So it's all painted now, and I really like that lighter green, the sparks paint on top of everything. I think that's pretty. I used the 2 browns on the trunk, but I wanted to make sure that cork still showed through. So as you paint it, you know, do your own personal preference, your own personal style. Oh, it is so cute. So now I'm going to let this dry completely before I add all the decorations on top. Of course, you can stop at this point. If you're like, I love it, I don't want to add anything else, go ahead and stop. But I think the tree needs to be decorated. Now this would be really cute on a wall as a woodland scene, or you know, if you want to add snow, you could do that. So add some white snow caps on the tree. So there's a lot of choices with this. Very, very pretty. By changing the color of the fabric, you can change the look of the tree too. So you could add a white fabric and make it a white tree, or you could do a pastel tree, or anything really. But I just went a little more traditional. So let's get this dry and then we're going to decorate it. So we're back, and now this is all dry and it's very pretty just like this. And definitely you can leave it like this, but I'm going to add decorations, and that's what I have all around here. So here's the tree, and you want to have decorations on it that are proportional. So I have these picks, and of course I'm not going to do that. I'm going to cut off the little, I don't know what these are, just like, they're not really holly berries because, well, they're not the right color, but I'm going to cut them off and I'll place them on individually like that. And I am also going to have some glitter ones, but they're smaller, and these are more in clusters. So I might kind of cut the cluster and put a whole cluster on like that. And I think that's mostly what's going to happen here. I don't have a lot of, I don't have any other ornament type things. All of my ornaments are pretty giant. I do have these bells. I might put those on. Maybe. They're a little big and they look a little weird. I also have this fuzzy ribbon. I don't know what it's called, but it looks like a garland. And so I think I'm going to put this on first, and then I can put the other decorations on top. I have this cording too. I might do both. I don't know, but I have those, and they're a big tangled mess. So I'm going to have to work my way through that. And I have a star, but that's awfully giant of a star. I have this star, which is very pretty. I might use this instead because it's a little smaller and it's a little easier to contain, and it might look a little better up there. So that is what I'm going to be doing, and I'll of course speed the camera up because you don't need to listen to me as I place each individual little decoration. I'm going to use hot glue for all of this, and I'm cutting it all with my Tim Holtz tonic scissors. These scissors will cut through everything. So that's what I'm using, and it cut through this metal just fine. And I got a lot of these things from the Dollar Tree. They have a lot of great ornaments, and I picked up most of this last year, but they have similar things there this year that they do. They have almost the same things every year. But look for things that are proportional. And when you look for ornaments or look at Christmas decorations, look for things that you can take apart, because, you know, this is too big. Look for things that can be disassembled to work on your smaller trees. So yeah, there we go. Let's get started. Let's get decorating. All right, so everything is all glued on. I've got a bunch of these strings that need to go. So I trimmed up the garland because I just wanted to have it a little trimmed. And if you want, you could wrap it around the back with all of this too, but I'm loving it so far. I like the mixture of the glitter ornaments and the just painted ornaments. So cute. I have the star glued on. And I don't think I'm in love with this star. He's not staying very well. I think he's just too heavy. So let me see if I can fix him. I do have these poinsettias, and maybe that'll go on the top. Well, that's kind of pretty. I think that's what we'll do, because the star is just so heavy, and it's, well, it's kind of folding. There we go. Maybe I could do that. I like the star a lot. There we go. That's better. There we go. We're going to let this dry and make sure that everything is really well adhered down. See, like this one's a little wiggle wobbly, so I'm just going to tuck in a little more glue. You want to make sure that it's really well glued, adhered, stuck down, because you don't want anything to fall off. Here we go. It looks like everything is good. I'm going to let this dry and see what else it needs before I say it's finished, because I don't think it's quite done yet. I think it needs a little bit more. So let me let it dry, and we'll be right back. So I'm back, and of course my memory card cut out as soon as I was getting ready to do the splashes. But you've seen enough projects where I have done splashes, so you do know how to do that. Let me hold it up really close. Look at how pretty this is. So I used 3 colors for the splashes, and I didn't do a traditional splash. Well, normally with the paintbrush, you know, doing where you splash and you do this. I took 3 colors, so I started with red wine, that's a metallic paint, and then I used Dragon's Eye, it's a Sparks paint, and I dipped my paintbrush in, and then I just flicked it all on. Then once it dried completely, I took the metallic white pearl and I went over everything because I wanted it to look snow covered, like a dusting of snow over everything. I covered up the star and I covered up the trunk because I didn't want those to have the speckles on them. Of course, a few got on there, but I just didn't want to have too many. If you notice, the star is a different color. It was that white color. I didn't feel like it matched. I didn't think it went very well. So I just took the Dragon's Eye, and it's a Sparks paint, and it's so sparkly, and I think it's a good good choice. If you don't like the paint, just paint over it. So, you know, just pick a sparkly one, and I think it worked really well. I am in love with my little Christmas tree here. I think it looks terrific, and I think it is done. And of course, now that it is all done, I am going to go through, and I'm going, see, I got some red on the side, so I definitely have to go through and repaint. And I'm going to use this metallic emerald green. And I'm going to do this off camera because, you know, it's not really very exciting. I'm just going to take a small paintbrush, and I am going to paint the back just because I think it'll really bring it all together, and it'll just give it that finished, cohesive look. Thank you so much for watching. Please like this video and subscribe. And remember, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and on my blog. And I have 2 Instagrams. I have Take Time to Create, which is all my crafty projects and close-up photos of everything I do. I also have Linda's Journey 78, which is my personal Instagram, and it's just everything else. I'd love to have you to follow along on both of those. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys next time.